Turning Points USA is the organization designed to appeal to young conservatives, especially in college, and they're turning their sights now on the next election, looking to campaign both for and against candidates. But their advertising strategy around that is very interesting already. And joining us now to break this down, Jordan Ewell, campaign director at Media Matters. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. And so I noticed you were tweeting recently about Turning Point Action, a new sort of spin-off from Turning Points USA. For people who might not be familiar with this, before we get into the details, these two organizations, what are they? What's the point of all this?
So Turning Point USA is a 501c3 that was founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk. He frames it as a grassroots organization to promote conservative ideals, capitalism, free market capitalism, and the rebuke of a liberal doctrine on college campuses. Most recently, it appears they're launching Turning Point Action, which is a 501c4, which gives them under the IRS a little bit more leeway to engage in political matters. But as we found this week and others have pointed out, there seems to be no concrete wall between the organizations, which is a huge violation if the IRS were to look into it.
Yeah, I saw that they were looking at like gifts that you can get for donating from one when you donate to the other, which the whole point of setting up the other organization is to comply with federal law, and this seems to be totally ignoring that. I'm assuming though that the odds that there will be any sort of legal ramifications at this point seem pretty low.
Yeah, it's most likely a favorable climate in the IRS for a group like Turning Point to commit any sort of campaign violation or FEC infraction or IRS violation that violates their nonprofit status. I don't think they're in any jeopardy. If this continues into perhaps like a Democratic presidency or a Democratic administration, we'll see. But I can imagine the Trump administration and others turning a blind eye to this. What was most notable, Jared Holt of Right Wing Watch pointed out that, like you pointed out, you get gifts from one group if you donate to another. Like they explicitly were giving Turning Point USA bumper stickers to people who donated to Turning Point Action. The Turning Point domain was prominently displayed on these bumper stickers, and a source familiar with internal operations pointed it to Jared to information that showed that these are made in-house by 501c3 funds and resources and distributed to 501c4 donors. It's a big no-no.
And look, let's turn to one part of this that I find most interesting, because whenever you have an organization like this, or like I'm thinking of other movements like Blexit and things like this. These organizations or movements designed to say, hey, we have this reputation on the conservative side of just being old white males, but we're not that. We actually appeal to other groups. It doesn't generally take a lot of digging to find out that that's not really the case. And I've noticed you've done a lot of tweeting recently about on Facebook advertising. A lot of that information is actually available. We can look and see how advertising dollars are being spent. So for these organizations, which are organizations designed to appeal to college-age Republicans, in your analysis of their advertising on social media, do they seem to actually be pursuing that?
No, not at all. Yeah, as you mentioned, their Facebook ads data, it just reveals that it's a complete grift, right? So they set up this narrative that college conservatives are under attack and they're organizing on campus, and they have this grassroots movement of conservative college students pushing back. But when you look at their engagement on their Facebook ads, all the ads, I mean, 99% of them, you would be hard pressed to find one that counters this trend, but almost all of them appeal mostly to 55 and up men, maybe men in their 40s and up. A very few touch on like mostly women, but in an older demographic. These are all conservative boomers that they're reaching. It just shows that the whole thing is a complete grift. It's a classic like case of astroturfing a movement. But as you now see this 501c4 integration, it just furthers the grift. They want old, wealthy conservatives to think that conservative college students are under attack, give us your money, we'll solve the problem. And then it's just this feedback loop where they just keep pushing all of this content to these people, making them think that there's this alternate reality happening on college campuses.
And just as a little side note, so I used to host a show called TYT University that talked about what was happening at universities around the country. And in looking for news, I tried to go to diverse sources that appeal to people on different ends of the spectrum. And there were a few websites that were ostensibly for conservative college students. And it often took like a minute to track down the big national conservative group that was funding this. And so it often falls apart pretty easily. I am curious, because I haven't been following Turning Points USA for very long. Do we know anything about who is actually funding the organization? Is this sort of a crowdsourced, small donor thing of college students?
Not at all. But I mean, there's that classic moment from Politicon where Charlie is yelling at Cenk, who was in the crowd, talking about how he lives like a capitalist every day and he's got this grassroots movement behind it. But really, it's wealthy millionaires and billionaires funding this operation through huge donations. I mean, there's most likely Koch money involved, the Koch brothers, but they might get some donors here and there from people who are hoodwinked on social media. But like the lion's share of this operation is from wealthy people who are hoodwinked.
You know, and one final question. I saw, I believe it was yesterday, you were tweeting about how many of their ads have been taken down recently. Do we know what was actually leading to their trouble with their ad placement on Facebook?
So it's kind of like a technicality. They were using a heart emoji. One of my colleagues, Natalie Martinez, found out that they were using an emoji in their "I heart capitalism" bumper sticker description, which is against the rules. But shows that like, yeah, so it's not like this like smoking gun. But people like Natalie and my other colleague Christina have been tracking other parts of Turning Point USA as well for a while. And Christina just published a list of like all of the racist incidents that has occurred in and around Turning Point USA over the past few years. And that's a thing that doesn't really get as much press as something like the ads or like campaign finance violations. But it's everything from them being on camera saying that they're okay with YouTubers' anti-Semitism, but they just don't want them to be like in front of media camera. They want people to know that they associate with them. Everything from like the use of slurs and racial epithets in group chats. And to most recently, and this one made some noise, the president of university, the chapter president at the University of Nevada was on camera talking about how white people will rule the country. His friend is explicitly saying the N-word. They're saying whites rule. He was booted off in the group leadership, but it's just like reflective of this larger trend. And sources have told me and others that this is how it is internally across the board at Turning Point. There is a huge racism problem. You saw this mass exodus of people of color leaving over the past few weeks. It's just it's rearing its head. They feel emboldened by this new political climate. But it's been going on before that. This isn't new, but it's much more out in public now.
Okay, very interesting, Jordan. As always, thank you for joining us and breaking this down.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.